Morning. Today, I am going to be doing a comparison between headless and traditional CMSs. Specifically, I'm going to be going over ButterCMS versus WordPress. So, a little bit myself. My name is Anant. I'm 26 years old. I am a platform engineer at Anant Corporation, and I live and work in Washington, D.C. So, what is a CMS? A content management system is a software application that can be used to manage the creation and modification of digital content. CMSs are typically used for enterprise content management, ECM, and web content management, WCM. ECM typically supports multiple users in a collaborative environment by integrating document management, digital asset management, and record retention. Alternatively, WCM is the collaborative authoring for websites, and many include text and embed graphics, photos, video, audio, maps, and program code that display content and interact with the user. ECM typically includes a WCM function. If you've ever used a content management system, chances are that you've likely used or heard of the WordPress. It's an architecture that's been around for almost 2 decades now and synonymous with CMS. How it works, and more importantly, how you work with it and get it to do what you want, is an ideology that many developers and marketers are used to. That being said, WordPress is the dinosaur in the world of technology. Despite having constant updates over the years, it is something that has been developed using old tools and principles. Like I said before, WordPress is almost 2 decades old, so surely something newer and better has come along in that time, right? This leads us to ButterCMS. ButterCMS is an API-based or headless CMS. It allows you to do the same things as WordPress in terms of enabling your clients, marketing team, and non-developers to use a friendly interface to create marketing pages, write blog posts, manage content, and it does so in a very different way. This entrenched familiarity with WordPress can be a challenge for modern CMSs like ButterCMS. Butter is quite different from what you're used to, at least from an architectural standpoint. It leads to many questions when you first discover it, and those questions we're going to be covering in this series. I first came across ButterCMS about a month ago when I first did my first webinar on Jamstack, a video recording that can be found on our YouTube channel. At the time, I was only accessing its blog capabilities, but now I would like to see if I can take advantage of all of its features. The goal of this series is to examine how ButterCMS compares to a traditional CMS like WordPress and clarify which scenarios may lead you to consider a headless CMS like Butter. I also plan on start building a website along the way so that you can have a clear idea of what to expect when working with ButterCMS. So, a traditional CMS like WordPress. In a traditional CMS, everything is packed together, and the technical architecture tightly links the front-end design and layout to the back-end code and content database. When you download WordPress, it comes with a predefined WordPress generic theme, HTML templates, CSS, JavaScript. These are the front-end files that control how your site looks. B, a predefined database. WordPress uses MySQL as well as WordPress content schema. And C, WordPress PHP application code that powers the functionality of your site and connects the database to the theme. In other words, it pulls content, i.e. blog posts from your database, and pushes it to the generic theme layout. When you're using WordPress, a visitor visits your blog post, and this illustration shows what happens. The raw data for the blog post is pulled from the WordPress MySQL database by the WordPress PHP application. The WordPress PHP application passes that blog post content, title, author, body, publish date, etc., into the WordPress theme. The WordPress theme, comprised of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, turns the raw content into a fully formed HTML that contains both the content of the blog post as well as the design and layout of the entire page, and sends that to the visitor's browser for viewing. To manage the content, i.e. save the blog post to the database, a traditional CMS offers a dashboard that navigates through how to add content or change the appearance of their site. By clicking the options on the left, you can do things such as adding a blog post or a page to your website. When you save your blog post in the WordPress dashboard, it gets sorted in the database for later viewing. As I mentioned earlier, a traditional CMS has been around for a long time. WordPress, one of the most popular CMS options out there, has been around since 2003. As the way businesses and consumers use the internet has changed, changing demands for speed, versatility, and agility lead to the creation of a headless CMS. So to recap, a traditional CMS gives you a way to store content, a dashboard to edit content, and an application plus theme to display that content. A headless CMS focuses on the first two and breaks apart the third, the tight connection between the back end and the front end. A headless CMS stores content, provides you with the content editing dashboard, and then provides your developers an API to pull content into your application's front end. When you create content in a headless CMS, you create raw content, text values, images, etc., not the layout or design of the content. A headless CMS then takes advantage of the API to deliver the raw content anywhere, to a website, a mobile application, wearable, essentially anything that is connected to the internet. This is a very different approach than WordPress, which keeps you contained within its system where everything back end and front end is in one place. Let's take a closer look at how a WordPress CMS works by looking at ButterCMS. So Butter is a software as a service that hosts and maintains the entire CMS platform, which includes the CMS dashboard, the content API, and the content API. You query our API to pull content into your own app using your tech stack of choice. In our case, we'll be using Jamstack. And you define your own custom models within Butter to represent whatever it is your marketing team needs to manage. People use Butter to power their company blogs, SEO landing pages, customer case studies, company news and updates, events and webinar pages, education centers, location pages, and more. You can use Butter for new projects as well as adding them to existing code bases. ButterCMS provides the same user-friendly dashboard as WordPress for maintaining your content. Using this dashboard, you can then create new content for your pages on your website and preview the content before publishing it live to your site. Since Butter is a software as a service, it is different from a traditional traditional CMS like WordPress, in that we're not a large piece of software that you need to download, host, customize, and maintain. Instead, it just provides you with an easy way to consume performant content APIs that you add to your application. You connect your app to the API and they handle the rest. Butter was also built to be a developer-friendly alternative to the traditional CMS, so they weren't joking when they said it's easy to consume. For example, if you wanted to enable a non-technical person to be able to add a customer case study page to your marketing site, you might create the case study page type in Butter to represent these pages. The non-technical person would then be able to manage these spaces from the dashboard, and the content API would output your content. Content is formatted as JSON, which is a universal standard for APIs and familiar to developers. This JSON can then be consumed by your application to display this content in your own branded theme, which includes your layout and your design. So let's take another comparison between WordPress and ButterCMS. So first, let's look at the setup. WordPress sites must be built on top of the CMS, meaning that you will need to learn and rebuild your website based on CMS rules and processes. ButterCMS adds CMS functionality when you need it in your existing tech stack. CMS is integrated rather than being the foundation. Hosting. WordPress requires a database and a specific hosting, server hosting, whereas ButterCMS is delivered as a software as a service, so you don't have to host anything. Code complexity. WordPress's content, CMS code, and website code coexist and intertwine, creating interdependencies and complexity. ButterCMS content exists separately and is rendered within your code's database by simple API codes. Security. WordPress's security upgrades and database backups need to be maintained. Again, ButterCMS is delivered as a software as a service, so there's nothing to maintain. What will the website look like? WordPress has built-in themes and templates that you can choose and customize. ButterCMS gives you complete control on how and where your content appears. And finally, flexibility. WordPress sites must be built and rebuilt in a specific programming language or framework, whereas ButterCMS can integrate with any code base. So, which should you use, traditional or headless? What is a traditional when is a traditional CMS a good fit for your team? A traditional CMS has the advantage of being familiar, and a part of familiarity is comfort with use. A traditional CMS like WordPress is good if you want to use built-in themes and templates as a starting point, then customize from there. On the other hand, you're making some sacrifices by choosing a traditional CMS. Your content types and delivery channels are limited depending on the traditional CMS you choose. You're also limited in whatever tech stack that your CMS uses, PHP in the case of WordPress. So if your developer team prefers a different language, it adds to their workload. Here are some scenarios where a traditional CMS might be the right fit. You don't have an existing site or aren't opinionated on the underlying technology of the website. You're fine with PHP and MySQL and things of that nature. Another scenario is you have developers skilled in WordPress and or PHP working for you, or you are able to outsource all of the development to a WordPress agency that you have a good relationship with and can afford. And lastly, the WordPress site is going to be a standalone basic marketing site, and you don't have any other tech stack or applications that need CMS compatibilities. Otherwise, you're going to be heading down to integrate with a WordPress path. So, when is a headless CMS a good fit for your team? A headless CMS gives you complete control on how and where your content appears. Because it isn't tied to any existing technology, your developers can use whatever languages and frameworks they're most comfortable with. Additionally, headless CMSs is more future-proof because of how easily it integrates with new technologies and applications. Headless doesn't use out-of-the-box templates, so you'll need to build your own application that pulls content from Butter and implements the front-end design and layout. It's important to note, however, that if you already have a website, you'll simply be integrating the Butter API into what you already have. So you should have a good sense of what that will look like. Some scenarios where a headless CMS may be the best fit include you have an existing website or application built using a modern tech stack that could be Node.js, React, Ruby, Rails, Django, etc., and you want to easily add blogging and CMS capability. You want to keep your developers focused on your tech stack instead of having them take the time and energy to marry your existing technology with the technology in an existing traditional CMS. You want to ensure content runs quickly by avoiding traditional CMS code bases, subdomain versus subdirectory for improved SEO rights for your company's blog and pages. You don't want to worry about hosting, maintaining, or scaling a CMS. Or finally, you want to maximize the amount of control over how and where your content appears across multiple technologies. That includes phones, tablets, wearables, and anything connected to the internet. That being said, it would be reckless to say that a headless CMS is right for everyone, just as it would be selfish to say that a traditional CMS is the best bet for your company. Your decision should come down to what you need or your developers feel most comfortable with and the amount of versatility and control you want for your CMS. Now, I'm going to quickly walk through the marketing website we'll be building in this series. We're going to use Next.js on the front end, and ButterCMS will power the API. Next.js is a React framework, which will do the server-side rendering for us. And as a result, our site will have a much better CEO score while avoiding WordPress. Let's see here. CMS on dev. Perfect. One second. There we go. All right. So essentially, this is going to be the marketing website that we're going to be building using Next.js and ButterCMS. Right now, everything content-wise, from text to pictures, is kind of just being pulled in from my local repository. But obviously, the goal of this is to make sure that everything content-wise is being pulled from Butter, and the only thing that we have in our code is just providing the structure of how everything's going to be laying out on the website. So obviously, we're going to be having things like buttons, different text, headers, and these different components that we'll essentially be creating in ButterCMS. And originally the plan was to kind of have everything go in one webinar, but it was proving to be a bit of a taxing task. There's still things I got to fix on my end, as well as I don't want to, just bombard you with all this information at once. So that's why I kind of decided to just split everything up into a series. But along with this, I would also like to just quickly walk through ButterCMS as well, kind of just show you what it looks like on their end. So again, similar to WordPress, you have your section with the blog posts. This is pretty much straightforward in terms of writing posts. Add the content for your titles, your slugs, as well as your cover pictures. Over here is pretty much where we're going to be creating all the various components. So obviously I have some right here, which include like customer case studies, frequently asked questions, general contact pricing, testimonials. And yeah, these are just going to be holding all the text and images that we're going to be pulling into our website. So like I said before, here everything is kind of in components, and again, just pulling everything out of the assets page. But we want to remove that functionality to just prove that we're able to build a WordPress site application, obviously without relying on WordPress. Actually, apologies. So in closing, it can be tricky to choose between a headless and a traditional CMS. The truth is they both have their potential benefits and drawbacks. Let's look at the traditional CMS pros. They serve your entire website with one solid system that couples your content and its presentations. Your container isn't fixed in the terms of a desktop experience. It allows for the customizable and resizable zones and the ability to create unique presentations from dynamic content blocks. They make pricing crystal clear. You're using one system with one account and one payment, which might alleviate some project management stress. And they also have low barriers for entry-level developers and content creators. Now, what are some cons with traditional CMS? They create website-only content if an API is absent. And so you won't be able to seamlessly use the same content for a mobile app or a kiosk, for instance. They are dependent on a display layer. So there's a limit to what kind of presentation and user experience you can provide. And finally, they require developers to learn a special CMS-specific language. Many developers prefer to have the flexibility to use their favorite language. Now let's look at a headless CMS pro. They separate content and presentation. This means that you can choose any front-end tech or your developers want. They give you the opportunity to play around more with how your content is displayed. Without templates and themes, developers and designers can generate unique user experiences and easily swap content in and out. They make it easy to plug your content into any second or third screen experience, like mobile apps, kiosks, virtual reality experiences, and other mediums. And also, let's look at some cons. The second screen experience, your medium is fixed, unlike websites that allow for customizable items and the ability to resize and rearrange dynamic content. A fixed medium, like a mobile app, container, or kiosk, is restricted to present dynamic content in a fixed zone. This means you can swap in and out of content, but you can't customize placement or presentation much beyond that. They give you another piece of the puzzle to manage. You'll need infrastructure to set up and manage the presentation component of your site, app, or other experience. And finally, they can be more expensive to implement. The cost can get complicated. You need to pay separately for the CMS, developer, and infrastructure, just depending on the company, on your company bandwidth. So as you have probably noticed, the pros of one kind of CMS can be the cons of the other, and vice versa. So the choice between a traditional and a headless CMS really comes down to your business needs. A headless CMS is a good option if your project will be limited by the front-end restrictions of a traditional CMS. If you're looking to create a unique user experience with complex features, or if you want to use JavaScript frameworks, headless is your best option. Likewise, a headless CMS will serve you well if you're creating an ecosystem of apps and websites. In this case, a headless CMS will let you deliver your content to the entire ecosystem efficiently, making a great tool for cross-platform publishing. But if you're building a brand, if you're building a standalone website for your business, you might be best served by traditional CMS that'll let you get your site up and running quickly and efficiently. And that concludes my webinar. I'd like to say thank you very much for joining. We're always looking for people to work and collaborate, so don't be afraid to reach out back to us. Again, this is going to be a series where next I'll actually be diving into actually creating this marketing website and really just showing you guys how things are going to start to look as we transition, using Jamstack on top of ButterCMS and its API. And with that, I'll open the floor to questions if there are any. Okay, it doesn't seem like there are any questions, which is fine. But I'd like to say thank you very much for listening to my webinar, and look forward to seeing you in part 2 of my series. Have a good day.